You know, Kirsten, David Cameron has also taken a similar tact as President Obama. He hasn't come out and used harsh rhetoric naming this as Islamic radicalism. When there was a man wielding the meat cleaver through the streets of London, he also resisted identifying the enemy as radical Islamic jihad. Do you expect that to change today at the press conference?
Well, I mean, speaking about the attack in Paris, he has used that phrasing. So, I mean, so I think in that instance,
but not he hasn't.
He calls it Islamic radicalism. I mean,
but not as harsh of terms as Harris mentioned as other leaders in Egypt, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think Islamic radicalism is as harsh as you need to get. I don't know how much harsher you need to be, and I don't think this is something that's going to be won by rhetoric or a speech that's given by David Cameron and Barack Obama. And for all of George Bush's, speeches, we still have a problem of terrorism. I mean, it wasn't created by Barack Obama. I mean, you can say as many harsh things as you want, and I also think that poking allies in the eye isn't also going to help things either. I mean, I think that they've come around a lot over the last decade in terms of even acknowledging. I mean, today more than ever, those countries are on board with wanting to fight
then the
terrorists.
White House is actually then late to the game because Ainsley, they still have not. So you look at the way other leaders have started to come around identifying the enemy as radical Islam. President Obama still has not done that. His spokesperson hasn't done that. Why?
Critics say that he's appeasing the enemies here. He wants to be on their side. He wants to create world peace and not worry about the beheadings of innocent Americans, children being killed in Africa, and Boko Haram burning people in their homes. This has got to stop. This is real. These are lives. 2,000 individuals in Boko Haram. Dozens of attacks or dozens of people dead in Paris and around the country around the world because of these terrorists. But he's trying to appease the enemies, and perfect example, he didn't send anyone, a top official, to represent the United States in the rally on Sunday. That was such an opportunity for him to say, we stand against ISIS, we stand for Paris or for France and for other countries.
Pete, can I ask you about the immigration situation? Because the demographics are not in the favor of the West or in the favor of freedom lovers. When you look at countries like France or like Britain or like Germany, where these raids that we just talked about, that Greg mentioned, are happening. I mean, you see, he mentioned, they're going back and forth to these countries. They have dual passports.
Yes.
It's a huge problem. And David Cameron and others refuse to do anything about the immigration system in their countries. It's almost like it's too late.
They're going to have to. It does feel like it's too late. And that's why I called it a Western civilization fight. What you have on the other side is a religion that has been used by many violently, that is ultimately not a religion of peace or religion of violence. It's a religion of submission. Submission to the Quran, submission to what it says. Some interpret that submission to be violent, some nonviolent. But even those who are nonviolent understand demographics matter. I've spent a lot of time with interpreters in Afghanistan. They were peace-loving and everything. But they say, Pete, inevitably, Islam will rule the world because the Prophet has foretold it. We're having 10 kids, you're having 2. That's a mindset of the masses of Muslims that may not fight violently, but they inevitably believe that the curve is not toward freedom in the West. The curve bends toward Islam and domination and submission. And that's what the president doesn't understand.
But this idea that, like, thinking that will be the dominant world power is somehow evil when they think it, but we think we're the dominant world power.
Do we not believe?
So I don't understand. Like,
we don't chop off people's heads. We believe in freedom for women, for homosexuals, for others. We believe in.
But that person you were talking about wasn't a proponent of any of those things. That person was just envisioning this is their view. They used to rule the world, and they believe that they're going to come back and someday rule the world again. All cultures think that. We think that. We think we will always be controlling the world because we do now.
We want to rule the world. I don't know what anybody's saying here.
We always talk about how we are the world leader.
That's not ruling the world.
That's not ruling the world.
We
are not a religious and political system.
So you think this guy you were talking to supports beheading, killing, and all of that?
Absolutely not.
I didn't say that.
But look at Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And inevitably, when you practice Sharia law and impose it on a population, it goes to radical places because it's in the text.
No, it's going to radical places because Saudi Arabia is feeding it to places. It's nothing.
Wahhabism is being spread all across the world. Have no doubt.
That's what Saudi Arabia is doing.
Won't call it what it is. Guantanamo Bay is a perfect example. They're still trying to shut down Guantanamo Bay as if that's the reason these people are fighting us.
That's not why he's trying to shut it down. He's
Absolutely. That's what Joshua has said from the podium yesterday. It's still a recruiting tool for the enemy.
It's a clear violation of human rights to lock people up and throw away the key. I'm sorry.
We're not throwing away the key.
Well, you can be somewhere for
hold on, one at a time.
We're not throwing away the key because we're unlocking the door.
Well, that's right. But that's the point. Like,
Guys,
you're going to either have to let them go or give them a try.
I step in with while you guys are talking about this, and the reason I brought up Pakistan is, well, then after this photographer, this French photographer, was hurt in these protests, why didn't the leadership of Pakistan stand up? If they say they're with us, and you know, you're right, the demographics are on their side. It's going to take those moderates, those people who say they stand in the middle between the nonviolence and the violence. Why not stand up to say today and say, you know what, we're so sorry, and condemn that? I haven't seen it. Maybe it's happened and I haven't seen it.
That's where I disagree just a little bit, Harris. People keep talking about the moderates. While I think that would be slightly helpful, that's not going to fix the problem, because it goes back to rhetoric. People standing up and saying, I don't agree with this decision. The radicals don't care.
Yes. No.
And the difference between people saying they want to rule the world and the difference between these radical Muslims is they believe that their religion tells them to either convert or be killed. As Bernard Lewis writes, if you cannot take them by the carrot to convert, you take them by the sword, which means you kill somebody. That's very different than, I think, the United States being a world leader. And by the way, when other countries are in trouble, who do they call? The United States for help.
No, but hold on.
So
you just totally mischaracterized what I said. I mean, I did not. You just totally twisted everything I just said. Because I was talking about the person who doesn't believe in doing that. I was talking about the person who doesn't believe
but that person can be cowed by radicals
and whatever. I wasn't comparing the United States to radical Islam. I was saying that it's normal for an average Muslim person who was raised being told that we used to dominate the world, we used to be the world leader, and now we're not anymore, to aspire for that. That was my only point.
And my point is that they are wielded and utilized by radicals who intimidate them. And the problem is that 1% that goes to violence uses the other 20 or 30 that are sometimes empathetic or sympathetic to the larger cause.
Look at that. Cleared everything up right here.